is going on, everybody? Welcome to Recover Out Loud, episode number 79, brought to you by the Antisocial Network. Today, we got a super awesome guest all the way from Oregon, but traveling the country right now. We got Saidi Bess. How you doing, Sadie?
Hello, doing great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Would you like to give a formal introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Saidi Bess. It's so nice to be here. Did you want to hear a little bit about what I do? Is
Yeah.
that what we're introducing?
Yep. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I work with women, really helping to move out of the wounded feminine archetype, which is a lot of victim consciousness, repressed anger, bitterness, unhealthy emotions, a lot of resentment towards the masculine energy, and helping them to move into the sacred feminine energies and expressions, which is really moving from our hearts, being in a heart-based place and receptive and flowing and in our power, in our intuition, and really connected to self-love and self-worth, because that's really what it's all about. And especially when it comes to recovery, right? Because it's that's how we get into addiction, is when we're not in a place of self-love and self-worth. I think if you're listening to this, you probably know that feeling probably deeply.
Oh, all
Yeah,
too well. All too
yeah,
well.
yeah.
We're gonna get into that in a little bit, but real quick before we do, everybody, I had computer issues this morning. My laptop camera's not working functionally, so I have to use a webcam. So if I look a little bit more closer up and you can see some of these marks on my forehead, don't be alarmed. It's technology. Like I was talking to Sadie about. It's our best friend, worst enemy sometimes. So, anyways, Bessie, or sorry, Sadie. I didn't mean to call you as Sadie and Bess. I'm
That
sorry.
is funny because no, that is great. I created my name, and Bess is the last name I chose was for my grandmother, whose name was Bessie, and I wanted to honor her in some way. So that's really interesting that
Okay.
that just came out.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad anymore. So, uh,
That's great.
anyways, you started out you're in Oregon, and now you are in Idaho. What possessed you to travel the country?
Yeah, really, thank you for asking that. It's a number of things. I set out, it was a pilgrimage. I wanted to go and offer grief support for women. And when I say grief support, it's grief support of the like unconscious grief of the wounded feminine, so much that we have lost of ourselves over, thousands of years of patriarchal, white capitalist rule, and the shunning and shaming of women, and the not honoring and cherishing the feminine energies. And this has deeply affected all of us, whatever gender you are, whatever however you identify. It's just been a very repressive, oppressive way of living, and a lot of sexual abuse, a lot of trauma, and this is happening for men as well. So there's a lot of grief to what we have lost through this process and this experience in our history. And I am a very firm believer in that absolutely everything happens as it's supposed to. Like they say in AA in the big book, and I always love this, either God is everything or God is nothing. So everything that's happening here, the patriarchy, the oppression, the violence, that's all God too. So there's a reason that we're going through all of this. So there's no shunning, there's no shaming, there's no blaming. There's just like, okay, here's the energy we're working with, and now what? And now how do we
Yeah.
work with this, and how do we honor it, and how do we help to move it through? So I wanted to set off to just go and offer. I do sound healing and energy healing, and I love drum rituals. I love holding drum circles. So I wanted to just go around the country and offer this in communities. And also, I really wanted to. I Part of a big teaching that I think a lot of us get, but that I'm really passionate about, is like trust, have faith, confidence in the universe. It will take care of you. We don't have to do it the way we've been told. We can break out of the conditioning. We can break out of these limitations. We can break out of these societal bullshit structures that we've been handed. And what happens when we do? What happens when we throw all that out the door, out the window, and just fucking go, and go and see what happens. And I wanted to get out of the city, get out of the same freaking day, same routine every day, with minor variation. But it was just, I know what that life is like. So I wanted to see, go against the grain, go against the norm, and just like go and see what happens and see how the universe provides, what really happens when you let it all go. And that doesn't mean it's not been without its challenges out here, because for sure it is, but oh my gosh, it's amazing, and every day is different, and it's just like, just such freedom. I love it. So there was and also just this spiritual pilgrimage. What happens when we do let it all go? We start to really learn who we are when we let go of all those things that we've been holding in place that keep us from knowing our true nature and what we're capable of. And we get very distracted. So I wanted to let go of all the distractions and go deep dive internally. And that's what happens when you get out into nature. There's nothing else around, and there's none of your normal stuff. You start going in pretty deep. So it's been an adventure for sure, but a real internal adventure. I was just like, oh my gosh, so yeah.
Stepping
Yeah,
outside of the realm of this show, of what I normally talk about on this show, to me that sounds a lot like shamanic healing from
absolutely.
shamanism, and that's something that I'm diving into. And somebody pointed me in that
Yeah.
direction. Said, "You sound like you have some shaman abilities or shaman abilities," and I was like, "Oh, that's scary. What does that mean?" And so I just found a book on it, and I'm
Yeah.
diving into it. So that sounds a lot like, to me, like
What
what you're doing.
yeah, what book what are you reading? I'm curious.
Oh goodness, I just picked it up. It is I think it's called The Spiritual Healing of Shamanism. I
Okay,
found it
not familiar
at
with that one, but
I found it at Books a Million, and I was like, oh, let me look into this.
there it is. Excellent, excellent. Yeah, for me, some shamanic stuff just started coming through, like abilities, and I don't use that term, but that's exactly what it is. I like the earth-based spirituality, because then nobody's attached to that word. It hasn't been like cultural appropriation. People get very upset when white people are using the word shaman. So I'm just like, "Ooh, okay, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, really working with the earth and the elements and just our natural magical abilities, and healing abilities and what comes through. And again, yeah, when we get out into nature and just see what arises and what comes through. And right now, so many of us are waking up to our natural abilities, things that have been shut down over the years, and in this experience that we've been having of this patriarchy. And I think there's got to be something good, some reason that we've gone into the more logical mind, and stepped away from earth and nature and the feminine experience and expressions and qualities so much. And now we're coming back into them, and we're finding a balance. So I think it's going to be really beautiful. And it's just like, science and spirituality coming together and how they complement each other. And I think it's the same kind of thing that we're working with. So it's beautiful to see so many people awakening to these gorgeous qualities and skills and expressions coming through. So yay for you! I'm excited. Awesome.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I started noticing this mass awakening in this past October. I don't know what it was, but like, just felt like, and I said this to my sister because she's deep in spirituality, and I said it to my sister last October. I was like, dude, there's a shift. Something is happening, and I can't explain it. Right, and it's like in the air. It's in
Yeah.
the universe. It's out in society. And then what I'm going to say next kind of sounds like, what you're doing now is you have to lose yourself in order to find yourself, right? And so I did this pilgrimage across the country. I lived in Alaska, and now I live in West Virginia. And it was just this journey I had to go through to lose everything that I had up there. Just literally leave everything I had and move here and start fresh. And it's just like this overwhelming sense of freedom, but this like kind of like empowerment, like a spiritual empowerment that I can now look at myself in the mirror and say, I like what I look at.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lose it. What
And
did you say? Lose thing to like lose yourself to find yourself. That is so it. And I'm going through that process again right now where everything is just kind of falling apart and it's just like, oh my gosh. Okay, but I know enough now having gone through this enough times, just let it go. Let it go. Something
yeah,
beautiful is transpiring here. All
if
that's
we
not
try to
necessary will go.
yeah, if we try to interfere on what's meant to be, then all we're doing is uh, prolonging our end goal, and we're just gonna put ourselves in that much more pain in order to get to where we are going.
Right. We create so much turmoil for ourselves, in the resistance. And when we resist the flow and try to attach and hold on, oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's dive into it. When did you start doing this healing work that you're doing, and what inspired you to start?
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna go back to sobriety. When I got sober, well, it was kind of like the second time. I was on drugs. I did the drug thing for quite a while and got off of drugs finally. um, and that lasted for about 9 months, and then I had a drink, and I was out with on a date, and just so freaking uncomfortable in myself. We know that feeling, so uncomfortable in my skin, just totally self-conscious, and we ordered a drink, and because drugs had really been my thing before, like I didn't think I had a problem with alcohol. Haha. So, but
Gotcha.
the second, yeah, exactly, yes, yes, yes. The second I had that drink, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I feel okay again, like, oh, all of a sudden I'm animated, I can talk, I'm not so inhibited, and I was just like, yes, this feels freaking amazing, because being me was really not comfortable at all. I was so uncomfortable in my skin. Oh my gosh. So then once that drink happened, it was just like, oh, this is on. So then it was 10 years of drinking before I was able to finally quit that. And once I did quit, like the universe was like, everything was just so divinely timed. It was just right on time. And it was like, okay, you're done with that. Now it's time for your spiritual path. And I um, ended up with meeting this teacher and started learning about energy work, and but doing it on myself, like doing energy practices. It was a Hindu tradition, Kashmir Shaivism, which is a tantric direct realization tradition, and Dzogchen Buddhism, which is also direct realization. So it was doing Kriya Yoga, which is energy, working with your energy channels with breath work and mantra and visualization. And so, really starting to clear those channels, which for me had been very blocked up. And, it was just all like, "Meh," like this. So, when I started working with them very intentionally, things in the meditation, all these practices, things just started opening up, and I started releasing those blockages, and stuff started flowing, and I started seeing the world very differently. My experience of the world changed drastically. No longer was it out to get me, and I was a horrible person, and but it just really opened up. And through that, like a decade of working with those practices, and just getting very intimate with those practices and knowing how it worked on me, I started exploring working on other people and seeing how that could work with them, and utilizing other at this time period too. Like I was getting these downloads, like things were just coming in, like different skills and abilities would just show up, and it was just like, which was really strange because I didn't get a lot of training in some stuff. I did some training in some things, but I just like like I would wake up in the morning after having this download all night, and it's like, whoa, I understand how this works now, and I think I can do that on somebody, So I would try that on my partner or a client, or just like, okay, I'm going to try this new thing. Let's see what happens. And they were, totally into it. So, because their other experiences with me had been good. So they were open to whatever I was bringing in. And then it was just like, whoa, okay, yeah, that worked really good. That was really powerful. So just different things just started coming in, and so I just started trying them, and witnessing the profound effects that people were having, because there was a part of me, it's like, oh my gosh, am I just making all of this up? It's like, luckily I had these people who were having big shifts in their life, and it was just like, okay, no, I'm not making it up. And luckily these people, that's my feedback, like, okay, and things
Yeah.
are happening for people and they're having big shifts. Um so then it just kind of started moving from there, and then developing a couple of programs that brought in all that I had learned and all the skills and tools to just kind of like supercharge a person's experience instead of having to go through years. It's like, here it is, here's all the things right here, let's see what works for you, because it's different for everybody. And my programs also include an energy healing session every week, because that is like the key. I think we're so in our minds, in this Western society. It's like getting down into our bodies, getting into the energetics of it, and really moving that energy for us. So, um, wow, that's it in a nutshell. I just was talking there.
It's okay. Like I said, this is about you. This is your time to share your story.
Great.
Uh,
So
but you
great.
know, I I do greatly appreciate spiritual work and stepping away from the westernized mindset that we have of a pill can fix this, or a drink can fix it, or a
Mhm.
person can fix it, or a place can fix it, because
Oh,
that none of that is true. None of that's true at all.
right.
Um, like
Yeah.
I said, we have to lose ourselves in order to find ourselves, right? So we shed that old skin of the addiction that we had, and getting rid of the guilt and the shame, which plays a huge role in the addiction portion of our life, right? It massive part of our life, and really being able to step into our own, and have those foundational building blocks, whether it starts in a program or starts with spiritual work or a little bit of holistic treatment. I think that's really important. So I want to applaud you for continuing to do what you do, and thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a huge sacrifice for other people.
Yeah, I feel like for me personally, and what I know, it's a spiritual disconnect is a huge piece of why we get into drugs and alcohol, because we're finally finding that connection and that source energy that we have been lacking and that we're longing for. And so for me, when I connected into spirituality, I was just like, holy shit, this is what I've been missing my whole life. This is actually what I've been looking for, trying to find it, like you said, in all these other things, in the people, in the places, in the things, in the substances, in food, sex, whatever, all the things that never fill the void, because it's in our hearts, and the spiritual piece, the coming back into our hearts, the coming back into the truth of our own power and the love that we truly are. That's again where I'm really passionate about people coming back into their own hearts, not outsourcing to external things. Because when people get on the spiritual path, it's really easy, because I turned that into an addiction as well. So I think this is really important for people in recovery and in addiction. When they get on a spiritual path, it's very easy to look outside, to look at a guru, to look at some tradition, to look at people do this a lot with AA. They give all their power away to this external thing.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's coming back into our hearts and knowing that we are the power, we are the love, we are those external things, that we're projecting them outwards. It's to help us, like when we get into a spiritual path, when we start connecting with some deity or something, the archangels, something, recognizing that they are just a reflection of us. Those are actually our energies and our frequencies. It's not, we can't give our power away to them. Oh, and this is what I was going to say with the addiction. um when I was early on in spirituality, I started doing, I was into like neo tantra, and I was going to these different workshops and these uh retreats, and I would get so freaking high on that energy, and I was just like out of my mind, and it felt amazing. It felt so
Yeah.
freaking good. I was like, "Oh, I found the answer." But then after the retreat, I would crash down really freaking hard. So then I would find another retreat and I'd throw a bunch of money at it, and it's just like, "Oh," and I go get high again. It's a different kind of high, but it's the same freaking thing. And luckily, I quickly noticed. I'm like, hold on a second. I'm going way into debt here. This is not sustainable. I come back from these things and I'm crashing hard. I'm like, this is not healthy for me. This is my addiction in a different way. I'm just finding another thing. So, that is something to be very careful of when we get on this spiritual path, because this stuff can feel really good, and it's easy to you know get high on raw food, or whatever. so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
again, be certain to not be outsourcing your power to something out there that you need. It's all in here, all here.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was speaking of that, using something else as an addiction. I did that with podcasting when I first got in. Like I was 2 years sober at that point, and I was like, I'm in a good place. I can do this. And I started doing it, and I went all in. When I mean all in, like I'm recording 3 and 4 episodes a day for my show, and that's not even talking about other people's shows, right? So I'm already using a lot
Yeah.
of my own energy to communicate with other people and to meet them where they're at. But I'm feeling I'm getting that sense, that high, that I'm doing something to change the world, and I need to continue this, or it's not ever going to be here. And then I burnt myself out really fast, right? And so
Yeah.
I had to take some time and be like, okay, look, like I've got to pace myself. And so it's been just this beautiful journey of like learning when to say no, learning when to say I have to prioritize myself over this, because this is always going to be here, but maybe this moment that I have right here is not going to be there. So yeah,
Right.
I
Yeah.
completely understand.
So important to learn, like, yeah, discernment and discrimination. And that's definitely been a big part of my path, and that fear of missing out. And yeah, when to say no. And that's again coming into like that trust and knowing that everything that needs to happen for us is going to happen for us, and really, especially as people in addiction and working through that, like learning to trust ourselves, and to feel into what is healthy for me. When am I using, because sometimes we have these energies that like our passion and our purpose that can really fuel us and serve us, but knowing when we're taking it to the extreme in an unhealthy way. So how to harness that energy in a way that is healthy for us, and that's kind of a personal journey that we all need to go on. But recognizing some ways when you are like going into burnout, and trying to stop before getting to that point, and recognizing when you're, yeah, using something again. It always comes out to that external force, external factors to make you feel good and to fill up the, to fill the void. When we're counting on that, that's when we know we've got a problem. And again, it's
Absolutely.
something that can be subtle, right?
Mm,
It's a lot of
absolutely.
learning ourselves. Yeah.
So you were talking about the guilt and the shame portion. I find that very important because I dealt with a lot of guilt and shame when I was in early recovery, as well as my addiction. Uh,
Yeah.
from your viewpoint, how do you see guilt and shame playing into somebody's addiction or even in early recovery?
Yeah, those are just freaking key, aren't they? I mean, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have any problems.
Yeah,
I
I'd be all right.
think. I mean, that, yeah, yeah, that was key for me as well. What to say about guilt and shame? And that is, it's kind of I would love to have a magic answer for that, but it's really so much about uh, learning confidence for ourselves and trusting that everything is how it's supposed to be. And that one took me a long time to work with, I gotta admit. Feeling like, and that's where I feel like energy healing is really helpful to kind of move those energies, because some of it is, it's not logical, and I'm having a hard time putting words articulating it, because it is such a heavy dense energy that we carry in our bodies and in our energy field. And we can get looped in it. We can get in this just mind loop where we keep just spinning out in it. And that's part of why I found the energy work to be so freaking amazing, because with the energy work you bypass all that kind of trying to figure it out and talking about it and going back to the source, because really, I just don't feel like that helps us. The psychological therapy and that kind of stuff, talk therapy can be helpful sometimes, but we get really stuck on that. Like, we're going to find the thing. And once we understand it, then it's going to go away. And it just doesn't really work like that, and it just can give us more shit to spin out on, really. you know, Shit happens, stuff happens, things happened in our lives. And the bypassing it through the energy work can really just help to open it up. And then it just goes, it just goes when it's time, and we don't have to analyze it and pick it apart. um I don't it just it I don't know, I don't want to throw like these one liners at it, because it's such a heavy energy. It's such a
Yeah.
heavy energy. I think that is one where, doing your own practices of meditation and breath work and really coming into finding a spiritual practice, because until we, come into that place of deeper self-worth, and it's easy to spin out in that. And there's like, we come in with a shame of being who we are, and that is so what's the word I'm looking for? It's it's part of our Christian society. This Adam and Eve sin and shame thing is just what we come into, that we are bad people, that there's something wrong with us. That So it's not even about addiction necessarily, but that just, when we're in addiction, we end up doing things that compound that shame and sin and guilt issue that we already are born into this society. um like, there's something wrong with the human body, and we're dirty, and just our being here is wrong, and we're destroying the earth, and just our whole existence is one of badness, and we have to keep trying to get out of here and get to heaven, or we're
Yeah.
going to go to hell. And that's just what this is based upon. And that's why, again, the energy work, because it's so fucking deep in us. This is where ancestral, here's the shamanic stuff, like really working with our ancestors, which is a big piece of what I do to help it clear it all the way back, because this is an energy that has been placed upon the planet to keep us in a fear-based experience. If we want to go bigger picture, these are external forces that have been placed upon here to keep us in fear and to keep us not in our power. So again, this is why we need to get out of the mind, because we're not going to figure it out. This is an energetic thing. There's grids that have been placed on the planet to hold
Yeah.
us in this. It's like the matrix, and that guilt and shame is the heaviest, densest energies that there are. And they're very what's the word I'm looking for? They're very successful, they're
Yeah.
very successful. And for those of us that are extremely sensitive to energy, which I believe addicts really are, I think it's very hard for us to be here on this planet with all the guilt and shame. And when we find a way to medicate and to feel better, it's easy for us to do that. So I think we are like kind of the more we're it's easier for us to tap into our spirituality, because we are those really sensitive beings. We're just So yeah, the guilt and shame, I don't know that I answered that, but I think energy work is really huge, and people can find their own ways to work with that too, with breath work and meditation and just sitting that, or they can get help when, with people that do energy healing and such to help move that energy. But knowing that it is not you, that is not your birthright, that is not who you are, that is external sources that have been placed upon you. So know that you are love, that you are valid and beautiful and worthy, and your humanity is gorgeous and stunning. Our bodies are freaking amazing. We're not dirty and sinful and shameful beings. So I can
Yeah.
just go on that all day. So
I think
yeah, yeah.
when you were explaining that, I kept getting this thing where that would pop in my head, and it's that sense of more, right? And I think guilt and shame uh, is ingrained in us, from birth, but it's also like it's been with us for a while with that sense of more, right? Like society tells you that if you don't make this amount of money, you're not successful. Well, I've got to get to that point, and make that amount of money. But then if you're in that tax bracket, oh, well, I got to make it to the next tax bracket. I need to make more money. Or I have to have a better car because, X, Y, and Z. Or I've got to have this line of clothes because that's what society tells me that I have to do in order to be attractive. And and so I think it goes in that sense of more. And then when you don't accomplish that and you don't fit that societal norm, you get that sense of guilt and shame. Right. Like I can tell you right off the bat, like as a
Uh,
kid, I never fit in, and I always tried that sense of more. That I always tried it, and whether it was I was trying to be more appealing to the people at school, or I was trying to be more than what I was for my father. Like I always lived in that realm of more. And when I got into recovery and I learned that I don't need more, I just need myself and the skills that I've learned,
mhm.
that sense of more just shed away, and that sense of guilt and shame shed away. And eventually it got to the point where I'm able to look at myself and forgive myself and say, you know what, dude, you messed up. You don't need to hate yourself for who you used to be. And yeah, so I think one of the things is it's ingrained in us at birth, but it's also that sense of more to be self-fulfilling.
Absolutely. Yeah. Whatever we do, we're never enough. That's what the society tells us. Yeah. They've got to do more, 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 achieve more, 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 get this, get that. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah, totally. I've been working with that one a lot too. And that's like, yeah, as I'm now like a business owner and trying to, you know, get my message out and get myself out into the world, and there's just all of this, and with the social media, and it's just like, oh my gosh, um, just feeling confident and valued and worthy in just who I am, how I'm expressing, what I'm doing, not comparing and contrasting myself to other people and what they're doing, and you know what success they're having, and that's what we again, that it always comes back to not outsourcing our power, not looking externally to determine our own worth and value, keep bringing it back into the heart, keep coming back into the self, just like you said. It's all about ourself, and yeah, we really need to stop looking outward, and yeah, and I know so many people are doing that right now. That's part of this powerful time that we're in this powerful shift, coming back in and just saying these systems, they don't work. you know
Yeah.
this stuff that we've been handed, this American dream shit, is not really getting us anywhere. It's not fulfilling. It doesn't feel good. I've done all the things. I see a lot of people like that, they did all the things, and I got to that point where after getting into recovery and stuff, I started doing all the things. I got the house, I got the car, I got the this, I got the that, I got the all the things I'd been told to do. I've got all the degrees now, just like,
Now
and it's
what?
still me.
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
didn't change anything. The house was a huge burden actually, and now I'm so happy to be done with that. And some of those things I was told I was supposed to have, and that I wanted to prove myself, especially after addiction and especially after that lifestyle, especially after living on the streets, being in jail, digging in dumpsters, like I wanted to
Yeah.
prove that I was worthy of being here, that I was worthy of my life, that I was worthy of being supported and loved and cared for. I'll prove I'm worthy if I do all the things that you said. And it doesn't freaking work. And I'm still the same me at the end of the day. It all comes back to me and how do I feel about myself, because we can have all those things and still feel like shit and still have the guilt and the shame, it just because it's not about that. It's just not about that. We got to let that go. And that's again part of why I set out on this pilgrimage, like let it all go, and really get into the truth of who I am. And ugh. Yeah, thanks for bringing that in for sure. Yeah.
So one last question before I ask you some advice. All right. I remember the first time I meditated, uh, and how I felt. What was your first time meditating like for you, if you can remember?
It was hell. It was absolute hell. It's just like my mind is all over the place. I can't sit still. I'm looking at the clock because it was like my teacher was like, start off with 10 minutes. 10 minutes was a freaking nightmare. Like just to sit still for 10 minutes was just like, seriously. She's like, don't have your clock with you. But I had to have my clock, my timer to know when the 10 minutes was up. And I'd just be like, I'd look over and like 2 minutes have gone by. I was like, fuck, It
It's
was
just
horrible.
torture.
Seriously, and it was amazing. And luckily I had a teacher and I had guidance for, to understand all of what was going on. She's like, all this shit you've been distracting yourself from is gonna come up. All of the emotions, all of the things. You don't sit down and just enter this state of like zen and peace, like you see on the in pictures. Like, no, 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 you sit down and you're faced with all your stuff. So all that you've been repressing, all of the crazy in your mind, you're going to deal with absolutely every bit of that, and it's just going to be you and yourself, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and you're going to want to get up and fucking bolt, and you're going to want to do something to distract yourself from your true state. That's where you are. And that's why we're running around doing all of this stuff to distract us from the truth of where we're at. And it is really freaking uncomfortable when we start sitting down with ourselves. But the more you do it, the more consistent with it you are, the more that stuff just like once it comes to the surface and is allowed to move through, and you just sit there and just let it. You don't judge it, and you don't, even your uncomfortability or your whatever you're feeling, don't judge it. Just like, okay, this is really freaking weird, but I'm going to sit here for 10 minutes and let it ride, let this stuff rip. And the longer you can do that and be consistent with it, the more it will alleviate, and the process will smooth out. And this can take months, it can take years. I mean, I'm not kidding. So don't think, and people have this idea that they're just supposed to still their mind. It's like, no, you're gonna deal with all of your stuff. um and that's totally normal, and I don't hear people talking about that enough. So people sit down like, I just can't do that. It's like, yeah, that's exactly your state.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So but just sit with it, and it will change. It absolutely will change. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of people around me that are like, oh, because they're like, oh, well, what worked for you? I said, oh, I do a lot of meditation. I said meditation works. Some of the most groundbreaking things that I've had happen in my life have come through meditation. Because I have to face
Yeah.
it. I got to look at it and I got to see it firsthand. And
Yeah.
they say, oh, well, I can't quiet my mind. I'm like, it's work. It's work.
Exactly. Exactly. You
Sometimes,
can't quiet the mind. Doing it.
sometimes the loudest noise is your brain, and you have to face it. You got to look at that. You got to look at at the shit that's in front of you, and not run from it. Because if you run from it, then you're just going to go right back to it when you're ready.
That's the thing. It's going anyway. If we don't look at it, it doesn't mean it's not going on there. That's what I mean with the distraction. We stare at screens, we do whatever we do. We get involved in this, that, or the other to avoid the reality that is our
Yeah,
mental whatever spinning. So the quicker you can sit down and let that stuff move through, the quicker you'll find peace and that love that we're all trying to get to, trying to remember to come back to. Whew.
absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. So before we wrap it up, what advice would you have to somebody that is starting in their spiritual walk? really early on, and they're trying to figure out, what do I do next, right? Like they've made the decision, what do I do next?
Yeah, that is, there are so many options available to us to explore. And for me personally, what I'm really passionate about, turning people onto is just to tap into what feels right for them. There are so many people out there telling you what spirituality needs to look like, how you're supposed to do it. Putting, and that's how we're moving out of this dogmatic religious systems that we've been in, that are just like, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this to connect with source. And it's just, no, you don't. And if you find people telling you, okay, so there's a couple of different things here. There's, of course, there's learning different techniques and different ways to do things. Like there are many different techniques to do meditation, and I, I would say try out a couple of those. You're going to give it a little while. Don't just, you have to give things a little. What I like to do, 108 is a magic number. It's a very spiritual number. I like to give something 108 days. If I'm drawn to something and I want to check it out, like, hey, here's this new meditation technique, or here's this new teacher, or here's this new affirmations that I'm interested in checking out because it's speaking to me. That's the thing. If it speaks to you, pay attention to that, because there's a lot out there. And if this isn't speaking to you, then don't follow it, no matter what somebody's telling you to do. If it's not like resonating, if it's not sparking something, don't do it. So, but if something is sparking, give it a little while, because some of these practices, you're not going to just sit down and do them one day and then like, oh, there, I got the fruits of that. You have to give it a little while because it builds off itself, and you have to
Yeah.
settle into it and learn a technique and learn what it does. These are spiritual, they're tools, but they're like, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, but they have their own like life force, or they do their own things. So if it's like, say, a breath work, once you do it for a little while, it's going to open up within you and start doing things and moving things, but you're not going to know that in a day or 2 days or 3 days. Give it a couple of months. That 108 for me, because it is a magical number, a spiritual number, I like to do that. Like, I will commit to this for 108 days. If at the end of that, I will know if I'm resonating with it, if I'm
Yeah.
jiving with it. And if I'm not, then it's like, okay, cool. Well, I tried it out, and now I know that's not for me, or I maybe I don't want to carry that forward, but maybe it is the thing. So that's one thing. But the biggest thing is, don't get locked into any of these rules that people are trying to tell you. You have to do this for this, try something if it feels right to you and you're inspired to do so. But just heard a bell. But if somebody's giving you rules and telling you how it has to be, really check into that,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people out there that think they know what they're doing, and it's different for each one of us. What works for you may not work for me, and maybe it's the best thing ever for you, but it just isn't for me, so really learn to be discerning, learn to discriminate, follow your heart, try really hard to come down into your heart. I know that's challenging when we've been in our head so much, but really feel into it. How does it make your body feel? And just like, yeah, I think I want to try that out. So go for it, But if something feels off to you, if something doesn't feel right in any way, and don't question it. Don't, just really try to follow that. That's there's a lot of people out there with thinking they have all the answers, and it's just not. Yeah, yeah,
I had no idea how many different forms of meditation there were. Like, and there's even more that I don't know about.
yeah,
I was on YouTube one day to do a guided meditation, and it was like sleep meditation. There was meditation for sleep. Then
yeah.
it was like mindfulness meditation. Well, I knew about mindfulness meditation, and there was like deep breathing meditation. Wow, okay. And then, going to some past life regression, and I was like, no way, like, and then just everything. And I was like, this is madness. I didn't even know. I thought it was just meditation, but there's so much more. There's a whole world out there for
Yeah,
meditation that people just don't realize.
absolutely. Yes. Yeah, and that's why you'll know, like, that may or may not speak to you. It's just like something like all those things you just said. Some of them sparked like, oh, well, that sounds interesting. And some were just like nothing at all. So, yeah, we got to learn to listen to that. So, and that's the thing, especially when just getting started on the spiritual path, we can, um, yeah, it's easy again to outsource our power. When you were talking, I was just thinking of things like crystals, when you start getting interested in crystals maybe, and you pick one up and it feels like, what does it feel like to you? And somebody else is like, oh, crystals for this and this, and you're like, oh, but it feels like this to me. So trust that whatever it is for you, trust what it feels like for you. What does Archangel Michael feel like for you, and not what this person is saying that's all about. So really kind of learn to trust our own feelings. That's part of what we're coming back into with this shift into, recognizing the feminine energies again and coming into our intuition. So just really, really trust you have inner guidance. There's so much strength and power, and we know we have all the answers. So start trusting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The
Mhm.
You mentioned crystals, and it took me back to the time I have them up on my desk right over here, or this shelf that I have. But first time I went into a shop, I got a bracelet. I got a chakra bracelet, right? And this lady looked at me. She goes, "Oh, we've had those for a long time. They don't work." I was like, "Oh, it would be cool just to have one, right?" And I put it on, like I bought it, put it on, and the hematite pulled it to the front of my hand. Now I don't have any metal in my hand, but it pulled it to the front of my hand. And I was like, "Did you see that?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm sitting here, and I just pulled my hand and I flipped it up like upside down, and it felt like brimstone in my hand, just like super hot. And I was like, "Go right here." Like, and she was like, "Oh my God, it's so hot." I was like, "Yeah, it works on the right people."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
It's like it's not going to
Speaking
work
to
on
my point.
everybody.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, so trust whatever works for you. I love that. That's so good. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
Great.
yeah. But anyways, before we go, Sadie, what, where can we find you at?
Yeah, you can find me on my website, of course, www.healingsacredfeminine.com. And on there, you can download my free little booklet on how is the wounded feminine sabotaging your relationships and what you can do about it. That's a huge piece. Oh, my goodness. And great for everybody to download and look at that one. So, and through there on the bottom of my website, you can connect with my Facebook, Instagram. I have a lot of videos on YouTube also. So, and I think I shared with you my link, like a link
Hmm.
tree. So there's all of
Yeah.
those. Yeah, and I offer a number of monthly. I call them empowerment circles now. I was calling them healing circles, but I'm trying to move out of that mentality that we're always needing healing. We're in
Yeah.
empowerment. So working with the full moon and the new moon, unconscious grief of the wounded feminine, a love bomb for people that need some love, and what was the other thing? Oh yeah, women's sexual empowerment as well. So those are all by donation, so or free if that works for you, because I know a lot of people just are needing services and support, and so yeah, just to support people. So again, all of that's on my website. Programs, healing sessions. There's so much going on there. So yeah, check that. And a lot of resources too. I have a lot of uh, book recommendations and crystal recommendations and a lot of tools on my website to really support people in their process. Yeah, I'm just all about helping us to move out of that low sense of self-worth into self-love. That's really what it's all about. So thanks for
That's
asking.
that's awesome, Sadie, and thank you for hanging out with me and talking to me and sharing your story and a little bit of knowledge. I had a great time. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I feel like we could just talk all day. So it's great.
Yeah, definitely,
Thanks.
definitely. And any or everybody, thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for being a part of this moment in time with us. And Until next time, I hope you guys have a good day. Much love.
Thanks. Bye.